This is Rising Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. This podcast is for men struggling with an unwanted divorce. I interview experts on divorce, mental health, and I provide insights gained from my own divorce journey. You are not alone. Join me. Joining me today is Noah May. Noah, let's just jump right into this and want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, as you mentioned, my name's Noah. I'm from the great state of Alabama. I recently graduated from Auburn University with a bachelor's degree in journalism. I've grown up in Alabama all my life, and during that time, I've dealt with a lot of mental health struggles, and I've been dealing with it since I was 13. And a way for me to kind of tell my story as well as share some light about my mental health struggle is being a podcast host as well. I am the host of three podcasts, but the one I focus on mainly is Lethal Venom, which is a variety show that I started earlier this year. It's been going pretty well, but I had the podcast to have my voice heard and as well as be vocal about mental health with men, especially because men tend to have to suppress their feelings a lot. So I created the podcast for space for people to open up and share their story and be honest and truthful with everyone that and finally had their story heard.
So you said it started at around 13. Could you talk a little bit about that? Sort of what were the initial issues you faced or the things that became challenging at that age?
Yeah, so I was in eighth grade at the time. I was still in middle school. It was my last year. And around that time, my grandmother had gotten sick. She had ended up diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. And during that time, I was starting to get really bullied for just anything and everything at school. And it kind of let me go down this rebellious path. I was hanging around a lot of students that were bad influences on me personally, and just I was starting to adapt their lifestyle and was just adapting their attitudes and personas a lot. And dealing with that as well as my grandmother, it just made me really get into like a huge depression spell, which of course I didn't know really what any depression or mental health was at the time because I had not dealt with it when it was kind of a taboo subject to discuss. I had not even learned about it at school or from my parents at all. So when I first got diagnosed with it, it was kind of a shock to me. Um, I started doing rebellious stuff. I started not really paying attention in school at all. I had a really bad porn addiction at the time. Somehow found that and was just engrossed in it. I remember she caught me watching porn because I was watching it during the day because I was smart. And I kind of just told her everything that was going on for like 2 hours. We sat down and I told her everything about what was going on at school. I was talking about the bullying. I was talking about my grandmother getting sick, and she said, "Okay." She she was really supportive during that time. She took me to the doctor. The doctor did some tests, and he really didn't have to do much. He just asked me questions, and then he said, "Yeah, I have every right to believe you got depression. I mean, it's evident, it's obvious that you got the same symptoms." So the doctor had put me on medicine to um take care of it. So I dealt with that for all of high school. When I turned 18 is when I got diagnosed with anxiety. I was a senior in high school and we had just come back from Christmas break or winter break, and I noticed that there was a change in just how I was physically. I couldn't really explain what was going on. During the night and early in the morning, I started waking up and would just have these awful nausea pains to the point where I would throw up. And we didn't think anything of it at the time. We just thought that it was, oh, I was getting the flu or I was coming down with some kind of sickness. So we went to the doctor and he was kind of baffled too about what was going on. The words that he said came out of his mouth were, "I don't know what's wrong with you." And when you go to a doctor, that's never something you want to hear from your doctor. When you want to go and it's like, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong with you."
Right.
It makes you think that you have something that's uncurable.
Sure.
And I thought, well, great, now I've got something. rare and they can't figure out what it is. But he said, I'm not going to give up. Obviously, there's something going on. So he said, I want you to just don't go to class this week, and I want to see if it's something with school related. And surely enough, it was somehow school related, and because I didn't really have any of the nausea symptoms, or I didn't have any vomiting spells. So we went back another next week, and he said, I did some more research, and I think you have anxiety.
Let me ask you some. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just curious. You haven't mentioned a father. Was he not in the picture?
My father was never in the picture when I was younger. My mom was sexually assaulted when she had me.
Oh,
Um, sh- she lived on her own at the time. It was back in 2001. She lived on herself by herself, and she had come home one night and had forgotten and had left the key in the door. And my father came in and essentially was just going, I think, rob the place and do a burglary. But then I guess once he saw a woman by herself, he took it upon himself to rape her, and she um was conceived. I was conceived that way. The police did get involved, but they never found him. My mom never knew him beforehand. He was a complete stranger to her. So we've not heard anything from him, and I've never met him. So I didn't have a father figure in my life growing up. I
so
only had my grandfather.
how much do you think that has contributed to the depression and anxiety that you face? And if you don't want to talk about this stuff, I totally understand. But I just think I ask because I think childhood wounds, childhood, uh, your life as a child isn't obviously, I think, deeply impactful to who you are. And I'm just curious as to the impact of that, if you think that contributed to the things that you have faced.
Um, it's a good question, and it's hard to determine if he had been in my life, if there would have been a change in how my life would be today. I had a good childhood growing up, so it wasn't as now. Do I wish that I did some have a father in my life? Absolutely, because there's so many questions I've had about adulthood that involve talking to a father figure, and I don't have that source. And considering that my childhood was pretty good, I it wasn't a complete loss not having him, but I definitely do have I definitely do have thoughts of I wish I did have a father figure in my life and had like the normal household
Sure.
situation that most people have, but I was just unfortunately, and that was kind of something I was bullied for as well. It's not having a father figure in my life because everyone in my grade had a father and I didn't,
Did
so I got bullied.
everyone, did they know your story? Did everyone know the story? I'm sure they probably must have. Right?
I did not know the story about my father until I was in middle school. My mom kept it such a huge secret,
Sure.
and she and I never asked questions about it.
So after you got diagnosed with either of depression or anxiety, at any point did you seek out therapy? Or did you have a counselor? Or what are some of the things that you did to sort of deal with what you were facing?
When I first got diagnosed with anxiety, my doctor had recommended a therapist for me to go to, but it was right when the pandemic had began. And
Mm.
so it was weird because this therapist only was doing nighttime stuff. So I went to a therapy appointment at 7 p.m., which was which was weird. I was like, okay, this is very out of character going to a doctor's appointment. It's not. I went to this woman. She seemed like she would have been an okay therapist, but I was I had the impression that if you went to therapy or any kind of therapist, psychiatrist, you were crazy. I was just
Right.
that was my mindset.
Sure.
It wasn't until I went to a therapist that I was like, oh, that's that definitely not true. Um, I went to one for one visit and then didn't go to it. But then, um, in 2022, I started religiously going to therapy because I was my anxiety had gotten so out of control and my depression was really out of control. And I said, okay, Van, fine, I'll go.
Right.
I went to the therapist and I went to him for a few months and he gave me some good advice, and helped a lot. But it wasn't until I went to my psychiatrist that same year to where she got me on great medication to help with anxiety. But when I first got diagnosed with depression, I really didn't go to any therapist at the time because I don't know why I didn't go. I think they tried to get me to go, but I was stubborn, didn't want to go.
Sure.
But
Well, I got to imagine if you thought it was for, people that were crazy or weak or whatever, I mean, that's not going to be something you're going to run towards, I would imagine.
yeah,
So what did you do in those years from like 13 to 18 where depression was there, would come in waves, as you said? How would you handle those waves? What were the some of the things that you did?
well, considering that I was young at the time and didn't really have many resources, I kind of went to music a little bit. Not, it wasn't as, when I got anxiety, music really played a factor, but during that time, it was, I don't know, I didn't really do anything to my memory to kind of get my mind off of it.
Right.
I just knew that if I was having thoughts, I'd have talked to my parents. I'd talk to my mom.
Right.
And I would say, I think my depression's bad. You know, I was a really huge YouTube person at the time. I still am, but I was really innovative in watching YouTube, and that kind of was a way for me to escape the
Mm,
depression and be able to get my mind off of it. So that helped a lot. And music did help a lot during that time as well. Um, but it played a huge factor later on.
okay. So now that you're a little bit older, you've kind of made it through your teenage years with this depression. You developed the anxiety. You eventually did start going to see a therapist. I think you mentioned medication. What are you doing now? Now, when uh, we can start with depression. Now, when you feel like a wave come on, so to speak, or if you notice it after, or whatever, what do you do now in order to handle the depression?
I have a lot more resources now than I did when I first got it.
Sure.
I don't have a therapist at the moment because therapy's so expensive now.
Mm, sure is.
However, I do have a good support system from my friends and family now. And I have a lot more friends now that deal with anxiety and depression as well, so
Mm,
they understand what I'm going through. I've also tried doing some things I've learned from therapy to help get my mind off of what's going on in the background. I've tried some methods as well with anxiety. Tried to do it. I've tried more tools to try to get my mind off the thoughts and try to defer it from getting worse.
right. Sounds like
So I've done a
you
lot more
you
things now.
you try to distract yourself. Sounds like the sort of the main um tool in your tool bag. Is that fair? You try and sort of distract yourself from or maybe change your mindset by providing distractions. Is that the case?
Yeah, and everyone's different when it comes to ways to
Sure.
handle and deal with it. Even sometimes even the distractions I do are sometimes not enough. It's just it's one of those moments where you have to let, if it's an anxiety, you just have to let the anxiety attack run its course. There's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can say, nothing I can do to help get it to stop it. It just has to run its course. And that's all really sometimes what all you have to do. It's no matter how many times you're trying to get me to do these exercises, no matter how many times I'm trying to think of something, you're talking to me. It's just one of those moments where you have to leave me alone, just let it pass. But for the times it's helped, it has helped. But of course, everyone's different. So it's just everyone that has to have try to find a way or method that is most beneficial to them.
In your therapy sessions, did you focus on just sort of cognitive stuff? In other words, like how to handle it, or did you do any kind of looking at the source type of stuff, looking at your past? What was your focus?
Um, when I first did therapy, I thought it was just easier for me to just do the whole family history because because if you learn the whole history, you'll understand why I'm the way I am now.
Right.
So I would go from birth until present. And then I would kind of go into more detail about my depression and I would go into the anxiety that I had, but I would explain it. So it takes about 40, 50 minutes sometimes to tell everything because there's so much to unpack.
Sure. Absolutely.
And you only have like an hour time limit. And so there have been moments where I'm still talking. I'm like, I'm not done talking. And then they're like, well, we come back next week. And I said, I might forget by next week.
Right.
I'm like, again, you just get boost me for like 5 more minutes. I
Right.
promise
Right.
I'll shut up. But
Right.
I have to do like the whole family background, just kind of get them to understand and
Sure.
get have them have an overview, and then we go from there on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you it sounds like you and your mom have a pretty good relationship. Sounds like she's someone that you leaned on. Is that still the case that when things get bad, you still go talk to her to sort of get perspective?
Oh, 100%. She's been one of the best support systems I've had throughout this whole thing. She has been number one for me since day one. Um, she also deals with a lot of depression and anxiety, so she actually had firsthand experience and she knew
Sure.
the signs, she knew what to do, and she was finally she was the only person I felt comfortable sharing everything and not be judged.
Yeah, of course.
And that was the best probably support system I've ever had from her was just her knowing telling me that everything will turn out okay, that it'll be that everything will work out in the end. It just takes time and it takes a lot of um hard work. And it's been a struggle, but she's been number one and she'll forever be probably number one person I go to.
If you had to give like one thing that was the biggest help for you with both of these things, what one thing is there something that someone told you? Is there it could be your mom or a therapist, something that you really kind of lean on when you're going through a difficult period?
I've gone through it once. You'll make it out on the end again. It's
Mm,
kind of a motto I've developed.
that's a good one.
Um, I've I don't know if this is a famous quote from someone. If it is, I give them credits to them. But I came up with the once a fighter, always a fighter.
Mm, I like that.
That's just been my motto since um day one. And I actually have fighter on my arm tatted as a reminder for it. And
Love it.
it's just kind of a singular word that I follow every day that I got through it once, I'll get through it again. Um, and it's also a thing of I've had people say that they're not alone in it, that they also deal with the same things as well. So to have a mindset of relatability really has helped me a lot. Because when I first got got diagnosed with it, I thought I was just the only one that had it. No one else would ever talk about it. So I felt very odd and abnormal just to talk about it. So I just
Sure.
always kept it to myself because I didn't want to share it with anyone else. So I was always like, I would always keep it to myself and not say anything or open up. So that also has helped me finding a group that has also dealt with it, but they also are not afraid to talk about it as well. That's helped me a lot.
So I mean, how do you go from not wanting to talk about it to having a podcast talking about it? Like, what was the catalyst that sort of made you decide to start talking about it to the world?
The podcast started, the podcast was like a 4 year process to make. It took me 4 years to get it up and going because life decided just to throw a roadblock at me. I had the idea of wanting to start a podcast, but I had no idea what to talk about. I was like, I don't know what I want the podcast to be based off of. So when I went to Auburn, they actually ended up having a podcasting class open up that they were starting. And I was luckily able to get in there and was able to get accepted into the class. And we had to make a pitch to the class about a podcast idea. And the first one that I pitched was a book podcast that I'm a huge reader, and I started actually getting back into reading at that time. So I was very adamant about it. But then also during that time, I also came up with another idea about a variety show, and I wanted it to be a show where I could speak my truth and speak my experience and not be judged and just have everything out there on the table. Because because even during this time before I got diagnosed with any mental health struggle, I always was the recluse of the whole class. No one ever wanted to talk to me. No one ever wanted to hang out with me. Nothing. Nothing. I just was always in my own bubble and just always fit to myself. And people would never get a chance to let me talk or hear my story or whatever, let me speak.
Right.
And so I wanted a podcast where I finally could have my voice heard. And so Lethal Venom came about from the pitch. I think I ended up doing the book one, but in reality, I think I wanted to focus more on this one.
Yeah.
And um, so after the class, I was finally able in 2024 to get it up and going. I was finalizing everything, and starting this year, I was actually able to start posting episodes for it. And so the podcast is kind of my way of being able to talk about hard things, but have the honest truth about it. I'm not gonna lie about nothing. I'm not gonna just say fake stuff. It's just a raw version of me.
Right.
And I've talked about very serious stuff on there. I've talked about my um suicide attempts. I've talked about my depression, anxiety. I've talked about my father on the podcast, and
Mm.
I've also had other guests on my show as well talking about their experiences. So
Nice.
it's a very raw podcast. I mean, I talk about very serious stuff on there, and it ranges from anything. I've had discussions with from people about eating disorders. I've had suicide attempts. I've had depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, um, shootings. I've had on there. I mean, it's probably the most raw podcast you'll find,
Yeah.
and it doesn't shy away from it.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Well, speaking of, what's the best way to, you got a lot of stuff on the screen, but those that aren't watching, what's the best way to find the podcast?
Lethal Venom is basically wherever you get your podcast from. It's available on the main platforms, but main ones it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, it's on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, as well as Pandora.
So it looks like you have some social media stuff. What you want to tell folks about that a little bit? Looks like you're on Instagram and TikTok.
Yes, so the Lethal Venom podcast has its own Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast. It's just a kind of a way for me to get connected with my listeners as well as share behind the scenes stuff as well as other related stuff with the podcast. So it's one of those. And then I have also a Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. It's Noah's podcast on there, and it's the same thing. I just post updates about the show and share teasers and trailers and
Nice.
just share some additional stuff on there. So those are the places where you can find me for the podcast app.
Well, Noah, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. The last question I ask is something that I ask everybody, and it's advice they would give. And coming from your lens of depression and anxiety, obviously you've never been through a divorce, thankfully. Knock on wood, it never happens to you. But through that lens, what words of wisdom would you provide a man just beginning his divorce journey?
For anyone that's dealing with any kind of mental health struggle, don't be afraid to open up and get help. It's it's a huge step to take to get help because you don't want. I had that mindset of I didn't want help because I didn't want to feel helpless.
Yeah.
However, I'm so glad that I did end up going to therapy and getting help because my life has been better now. It's something that it's something that you kind of live with for the rest of your life. Now, you might miraculously get cured, and if you do, that's awesome and fantastic to not have to deal with it anymore. But for the majority of people, it's something that lives with you for the rest of your life, kind of. Don't let it affect you in any way or form. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it affect how you live every day. Just live every day like it is. It's just something else that you're having to go through, and it's just something about you. I find it the way it makes you unique, and it makes you your own person, and no one can copy that. And it's just don't be upset that you have it. Just be proud about it, and kind of be like, yeah, I have it, and I'm still doing the best I can every day. Because there's been so many times where I've wanted to give up, and I'm so glad I didn't, because if I had given up, I would not be where I am now. So just keep fighting. It gets better. Just stay true to yourself and don't let it affect you or anybody, and don't let anyone get in your way of stopping you from living your dreams.
Awesome. Thanks. No, I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you are feeling alone on this journey, please join our Discord server. Becoming a Phoenix is not a solitary act. It is one achieved through community. Our Discord server is just that, a community of men fighting to survive, thrive, and rise from their divorce. Go to risingphoenixpodcast.com/Discord for information on how to join and what is contained in our Discord server. Please join us.